Osmosis, I mainly looked on the under-the-counter ones because those would seem to be what most people would be interested in using because a whole house reverse osmosis system seemed astronomical for most patients. Reverse osmosis, the great thing about it, it pretty much takes everything out. It's very similar to distilled water. So distilled water has no minerals in it. It also takes out all of your heavy metals, cadmium, arsenic, lead, Giardia, cryptosporium, which are mainly your bacteria in the water. Oh boy, chlorine, fluoride, anything that seemed to be toxic, it pulled out of the water. Now, reverse osmosis systems have gotten smart, and they realize that people don't want all the minerals out of their water because they know that that mineral is important to the body. So they started selling an artesian water tap plan, and what that one does is it adds calcium and magnesium back in. Now, it's not all the trace minerals and the minerals that you would need in your water, but at least it's a start, and it's a very healthy water. That's the one nice thing about it. So there are downsides. The under-the-counter costs anywhere between $300 and $600 depending on which one you do, and you would really only need to change the filter once a year, and it's about, depending on which filter you're using, $50 to $100 for that year. So not too terrible.
No.
Little known fact, I was looking at contaminants of food. Did you know that your food, by the time you get it onto your table, if you buy vegetables at the grocery store, it's touched a minimum of 25 times?
What?
Touched by people, a minimum of 25 times. And you never know what they have on their hands.
I'll stick to my own garden.
Yeah. There you go.
So, what health issues are standing in the way of your proper weight? Here we jump into new material. One of which, we're going to cover a bunch of them, is decreased metabolism to, one, toxicity and health syndromes. Two different topics for now. Toxicity. Where is toxicity coming from? And I just made a jump that toxicity equals weight gain, and you're just going to have to take me on faith on that one. There's a lot of studies there that show that toxicity causes inflammation, which slows down metabolism and creates obesity. Okay, insulin resistance, which I'm going to talk about, thyroid conditions, all that, very much associated with toxicity. So just ride with me on this one. Identifying and removing risky lifestyle behaviors. Now, what could that be? You know, it could be as simple as chronically sleep deprivation. This chronic sleep deprivation. That is risky lifestyle behavior. Because for every hour of sleep that you lose in a night, your immune system will decrease by about 30% for the first hour, another 20% for the next one. So by the time you've lost an average of 2 hours of sleep, your immune system is on half of its normal function. Your immune system is kind of the cleanup go-to guy or gal, and if your immune system is irritated, you are going to go to a more inflammatory state. It will contribute to obesity, and there's more than a few studies that show that sleep deprivation and obesity go together. In fact, some of the newer studies with the newest fad that's sweeping through West Michigan, and that is the PAP machine. You're all familiar with, everybody's got this thing going with the sleep and sleep apnea and blah, blah, blah. It seems like we have something going here. But what happens, and I'm not poo-pooing it because some people have really benefited by this, but one thing that's noted with some of these studies, we get the patients sleeping better, they start losing weight in a very effective, fast way. So that's a risky lifestyle behavior. There's things like over-drinking. How about just plain old booze? There's the word for this, beer gut, comes from a reason, right? Beer is very high on the glycemic or sugar index. The sugar that's in beer, maltose, is about 1.5 times the negative effect on your body as compared to regular sugar. A lot of beers are worse for you sugar-wise than pop is. It's a risky lifestyle behavior. I can just hit that one and you'd be still here tomorrow morning at 7. We're not going to do this. So lots of them out there. Contaminants, toxins, toxicants. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Pathogens and endotoxins. When you have a chronic infection going in your tooth and it's going on undetected, which a lot of them are, It's just burrowing itself slowly underneath, and there's this slow cavity. It really affects your overall inflammation. Yes, we get other things from it, documented, heart disease, autoimmune diseases in general. But it is a huge contributor to obesity for some people, because all these inflammatory signaling agents at some point have to be stored somewhere. Fat cells, the go-to guy or gal. Yeah? Occupational exposures and stress. Stress, folks, is huge. It affects something, we're going to talk about that, the pituitary thyroid adrenal axis, or PTO axis. Stress makes us fat. It's amazing what a vacation will do for some people. I this morning started one of my first patients at 7 o'clock this morning. Comes back, we just did a repeat BIA, which checks your muscle mass and body fat and metabolism and other various things in a very accurate way. It's called bioimpedance analysis, or BIA for short. And you know what? He went to Hawaii, lucky him, for 2 weeks. He comes back, he said he'd been eating not so good. He was kind of afraid to do the BIA. He had lost 6 pounds. He said his gut just felt like it was gone. His muscle mass went up 2% of his body weight. Rest. It's amazing what a change. Now, he was only 40 years old, and that makes a difference as well, of course. But still, wow. I was so impressed what just rest did for him. So getting rid of stress is a big one. Occupational exposures. We have a lot of patients that come in from tool and die kind of places, and wow, are they exposed to contaminants? And do they have trouble with weight? Because they're pretty active overall. And a lot of them have pretty decent muscle mass. We have a big problem here, folks. Toxicity in a very concentrated degree. So occupational exposures, absolutely. One of the biggest contaminants, or the highest percentage of contaminants up and above tool and die, hairdressing salons. Yeah? And dental hygienists, heavy metals. Even worse than dentists. They have twice the amount of heavy metals in them, and wow, does it affect them? Occupational exposure, isn't it? Yeah. Bad or toxic relationships. This one is shocking to me, how that affects patients' health. I dare say that a bad or toxic relationship is as bad or maybe even worse than just having a junk food diet. Emotions create havoc with health. The emotion-health connection is so powerful, so underestimated. Bad or toxic relationships, I have seen miracle cures with this. I have a patient, very Italian, always waving his hands and very expressive, and how he talks, and dog, I love you, you know, and he hugs me, and I'm Dutch and kind of reserved, and he's like, yeah, and so he comes in and he says, Doc, you just cured me, this ache here and here and here, and he had been through a litany of things, including his sugar levels being improved. Just incredible, and I could hardly believe it. I said, wow. I didn't know what to tell him. I said, let's do BIA. So I broke the rules. We're supposed to schedule the BIAs. We did a BIA right on the spot, and sure enough, his BIA numbers were incredibly different in just 6 weeks' time. And I said, well, what's happening? He says, I'm getting married next week. A little bit older gentleman, and he was getting married, had fallen in love, was kind of a quick process. And it is absolutely amazing what a difference that made. So yeah, this is a big one. Dehydration sources. If you are dehydrated, your metabolism stops. Folks, water's cheap. It is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies that we encounter here in this office. We do the BIA, and dehydration is so unbelievably common, and it is so unbelievable the results you get just with hydration. Books have been written about it. A really neat textbook is written by a researcher. He had an MD, PhD, who was a hostage in one of the Middle Eastern countries, and the only medicine that he could use on fellow prisoners there